Hey everyone, and welcome to another one of our videos. Today I have a home good type of video for you, and that is the review of this ZooZee Z50 robot vacuum cleaner. This is essentially kind of like a Roomba. I've never had any kind of automated robot vacuum cleaner. I've always vacuumed all of my floors myself and everything. But I wanted to try one of these out. Back in the day, they weren't big enough to, didn't have a large enough battery capacity to be able to vacuum my entire home. It's a little bit over 3,000 square feet. So that most of them weren't an option back in the day. Now they have that capacity, and now from what I understand from reading reviews and everything, they are improved over the older ones and work better, last longer, are more intelligent in terms of not running over certain parts of your house or areas of your house or getting themselves lost, things like that. So I wanted to try one of these out. This one's rated really well on Amazon. It's pretty inexpensive. At the time that I purchased it, it was, I believe, right around $200. So not one of the super high-end ones, not one of the super low-end ones, but kind of in the mid-range. And what I like about this one, I don't know if I'll use the feature very much, if at all, is the fact that it's able to vacuum and mop. So generally, I do not mop my house. I keep it clean enough that I don't need to. But having that feature in something, I think, is definitely not a bad thing. And depending on how well it works, it may be something that I use on a infrequent basis, but on a basis nonetheless. So I'm going to go ahead and reposition the camera so you can see into the box better as I open it, and I'll show you what's inside the box, and we'll go from there. Well, we have the box here, and we've got the little tab down at the bottom loose, so we should be able to open it up and see what's inside. The box itself, pretty generic and pretty plain, but saves a little bit on cost, which hopefully is passed on to the customer in a lot of these things. On top, we have a little manual booklet looking thing. If we open that up, it unfolds, we have a little pamphlet, are you happy type of card, quick start guide, more quick start guide for app connection, because this does connect to your Amazon Echo, to your smartphone, and then a pretty thick manual. Not sure if it's because in multiple languages. It is in multiple languages, so that's a good part of the reason why it's fairly thick. Looks like we go from English to German right about there. So that much of it is the English portion. So that's the manual, and that's what's on top. Underneath, we just have cardboard packaging. And looks like in here we have the vacuum and a lot of other stuff. Power brick, some sort of remote control. A little filter. What looks like or feels like a roll of magnetic tape or something along those lines. We'll see what that is. We have, I believe it's docking station here. A couple batteries, probably for the remote control. The robot itself, the giant frisbee. Set that off to the side here. We have 4 little brushes, which I'm guessing we have to attach to the underside of it. We have one of the hair cutting and brush cleaning tools. This is probably to service the vacuum periodically. And I think that's it inside that portion of it. And then over here we have something else. Let's see. We have mopping pad, very much like some of the ones that you have with steam mops. We have, and then the only other thing that we have is this, which looks like is the mopping tray. Might also be the dustbin for the vacuum. I'm not entirely sure yet because I haven't read the instructions yet, but we have that as well. And that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and start diving into the instructions and figure out what's what and how to put this thing together. And then we'll move on and kind of show you guys what's up and where we go from here. Alrighty, so I've gone through the manual and read at least through the basic setup procedure portion of it, like to get this thing set up and charging, which is my first goal, because this thing needs to charge for at least a few hours in order to be fully charged and be able to be operational. So first step in that, you need to take the base here and set it up flush against the wall. It has to set up against the wall. It can't be spaced away from it at all because the robot, I guess, will push it back whenever it comes to redock. That's what the instructions say, at least. You got to remove some film before you set this guy up. So we'll go ahead and tear that off. So that's step one. Step two is to get the robot kind of prepped. Again, it's got some film right here around the front. Pull that off. That should be good to go. Before you charge the robot, it has a couple areas on the bottom where you need to install these brushes. Now, the instructions don't explicitly state how to do that, but judging from how easy that was, it's not too difficult. You do have to pay attention to which ones are left and which ones are right. It looks like they're labeled. They have a little R on the brush and R and L here. I just put the R on the L and vice versa. So R is over here, L is over here. That's all set up correctly now. It's got a little bit of suspension, which is interesting. That's kind of cool. It comes with the dry vacuum bin pre-installed here from what the instructions say. So the one that I pulled out earlier, which is right over here, is just the wet mop one. So that's that. And then at this point, we're basically ready to go ahead and set this guy on the dock to get it charging. So what you need to do that is set the dock up like I mentioned, and basically find your charging contact points, which are right here, and set them onto the charging contact points right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, plug it in, and then go through the rest of the instruction manual while this thing's charging, figure out how to set things up, how to swap out maybe the tanks, things like that, and then we'll move forward from there. I have the vacuum set up here on one of my walls. It's plugged into the charger or docked onto the charger. The blinking red lights means that it is charging and that it is below whatever threshold of battery percentage defines low. So mine came with about 45% battery charge in it. I'm going to go ahead and let it charge the rest of the way up. I was able to connect it to my smart home app. The instructions recommend using the Tuya app. I use Smart Life. I've been using that for years. It's worked really well for me. They're all pretty universal, and this one will connect to the Smart Life app. So that's a really good thing as far as I'm concerned. So in order to do that, this app and the Tuya app as well kind of differ from the way that the written instructions are shown. Whenever you go into the app, you're going to have several different robot vacuum options, at least at the time of filming this video in mid-2021. The option that you want to select for this is robot vacuum, and then in parentheses you have Wi-Fi. You don't want the BLE and Wi-Fi option, you don't want the BLE option, and you don't want the IPC option. You want the Wi-Fi option. So selecting that and pressing and holding the power and the little arrow button, which is basically the return to home button, pressing and holding both of those and waiting until those lights started blinking really rapidly in white, allowed me to connect it to the app. So at this point, I'm able to go into the app and see that the vacuum is charging. It's at 48% battery now, hasn't cleaned anything. I would be able to switch it on right now if I wanted to, but I'm going to go ahead and let it charge, let it do its thing, and get ready to go so we can test this out probably tomorrow after letting it charge overnight. So that's where I'm going to leave off for now, and I'll come back once this thing's ready to roll. Well, it's been a few days since I initially placed the vacuum here on the wall that I showed you before. And I've played around with it a little bit over the last few days. I let it charge overnight the first day that I put it here. And then I played around with it a little bit off camera to see how it works and kind of what it's capable of. So kind of to start off with, setup-wise, basically the way I have it set up is plugged into the wall, 3 foot of clearance on either side, and 6 feet of clearance in front of the vacuum. That's what the specifications require, so that's what I did. Made sure that I had the space there, obviously whenever the camera's out of the way, of course. Basically the way the vacuum's set up, you have a power button and then a return to home button. And if you wanted to, in theory, I suppose you could operate the vacuum just using those 2 buttons. So if you push this, it'll back away from the docking station and start running. And if you push the return to home button, catch up to the vacuum and push it, it'll return back to the docking station. You can pick up the vacuum once you've paused it and put it back on the docking station as well manually if it got lost or ran out of battery or something. That seems to work just fine as well. I initially didn't really know how to return it to home, so I was doing some of that whenever I had first gotten it. So I haven't tried out the remote control or anything yet, but I've been using the Smart Life app, and hopefully you're able to see that on my phone screen. But basically, I'm able to click on the vacuum, so you have your list of different devices. I can click on the vacuum right there, and you have power options, options to pause or start cleaning, have it auto clean, have it follow walls, different cleaning patterns. You can click on the recharge button to send it back to home, and again, more cleaning patterns and settings for the vacuum. Basically what it shows on this screen whenever it's actually vacuuming is your cleaning time, your battery percentage, your area that it's cleaned in meters squared, and it will show you a map of where it's cleaned. And it's reasonably accurate, so it will kind of show you the pattern around your home that it's cleaning in. Kind of cool to see, and good to know that it's getting to certain areas or not getting to certain areas. What I found in kind of my initial assessment of this thing is that it does a pretty darn good job cleaning, just in general. It vacuums up pretty well. It's able to handle rugs without any problems, so my area rugs and everything. I was worried about the ones with long tassels. Still haven't tried it out fully with the ones with long tassels. I tuck the tassels underneath. But rugs with short tassels, not a problem. And it can climb up. It can go from tiled to carpeted areas, no problem. So those are all great things. But I found that it's able to handle cleaning and everything really well. But sometimes it'll start cleaning the same spot over and over again. It'll not get lost per se, but it'll just get into like this repetitive mode. And sometimes I've had to, if I'm trying to test it in a certain area or something, relocate it physically to a different room. So one thing that's nice about being able to start and stop it on the vacuum itself, if you just want to take it, put it in a room, shut the door, and let it just run in that room for 10 minutes or 2 hours, you could do that. It'll just keep on bouncing around the room, basically, bouncing off the walls and everything. The self-guidance, collision avoidance, all of that works pretty well. I found that with chair legs and things like that, it'll kind of run into them. But it does have sensors in order to basically sense that the chair is there, a bump sensor. That's actually on the front side of the vacuum here. So anywhere that hits, it's able to tell where it senses where it hit. So that's there. The vacuum, obviously, as you heard, talks to you. So there's that. Take it or leave it. I don't know if there's a way to turn that off. Haven't investigated that yet. Doesn't really bother me. And the nice thing about that is if you turn it off and turn it back on, if you're trying to find where it ended up, if it decided to hide under a bed or a cabinet or something, you can do that pretty easily. The only other thing that I've done with it so far, other than, again, cleaning with it, is clean it out. So you have the dustbin here on the back. Haven't used the mop yet, but in order to remove the dustbin, you basically put your finger in this little hole here, push down on this little lever, and you're able to pull the dustbin out.
Dustbin removed.
It tells you that the dustbin's been removed. You can change the filter by just unclipping the top of the bin and pulling the filter out. So that's filter change. And then cleaning the dustbin out is as simple as opening up the clamshell. You can see there's some dust in there. I didn't wash it out or anything. Last time I used it, I just cleaned it out. I've noticed whenever you tip it around on the dock and everything, it'll
Dustbin in position.
tell you that it's recharging, so on and so forth. And then it tells you, obviously, like you just heard, that the dustbin's back in position. So, after going through some of the basic features with you just now, I think it's basically time for a little bit of a demonstration. So, I'm going to go ahead and fire up the vacuum. I'm going to back the camera away from it and do the best I can to set it up while still focusing on it and letting it run, and basically let you guys see kind of what the initiation sequence is and everything, and how it functions like day-to-day basis. So if you came home and you said, hey, I want to clean my floors, you click the button and this is what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and rearrange, and then we'll hit the button and see how it goes. All right, so I have the camera backed away and everything. I apologize if there's a little bit of funky lighting that you see. I've got it lit in here as evenly as I can. It's nighttime, so I've got a bunch of different lights, color temperatures, things like that going on. But I'm going to try my best to show you how this thing functions. So I have the app open on my phone. I'm in the Smart Life app, in the little ZooZee section, which is obviously named after the vacuum. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the button at the bottom that says Auto Cleaning. That's basically a zigzag type of cleaning pattern. It'll go back and forth on the floor, and you'll see it do that right now. So to start up, it backs away from the base station, I guess is the best way to put it. And there it goes. So we have it driving down my floor with those little brushes spinning. Those brushes are nice because they actually get underneath stuff, and they get into corners and along baseboards and things and kind of sweep into the vacuum. So it'll go and probably stop right about there, move over a little bit, and then come back down. Now, one thing I've noticed, which you're probably seeing right now, it tends to drift a little bit to the left. So if you take the lights as the front of the little robot, it starts to drift a little bit to the left. So it has a little bit of an uneven cleaning pattern. I checked the wheels, there's nothing jammed in them or anything, and it did that since the very first run. It seems to get pretty good floor coverage no matter what, so it's not been a big problem so far. But just something to note, it does not go perfectly straight for what it's worth. So this is basically operation of the vacuum. Once it comes back over a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and show you how it redocks. Alrighty, so you can see on the app, I apologize for it being blurry, but I want to be able to show you guys the docking procedure. You can see it's kind of filling in the area right here that it's vacuumed. I'm going to go ahead and pause cleaning off camera, and I'm going to click on recharge. And this is going to send the robot back to its home. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what it's doing. It basically turns off the vacuum and starts to move slowly with red lights on back to its home. You can see it kind of proceeding very slowly. It has some sort of sensors, IR, something like that, in order to find its docking station. The station projects out some sort of signal, and the vacuum picks it up. So you can see it's making it to its home base there. And it's really nice and simple and easy, kind of how it docks. It just kind of rolls up on there and it's no problem. Recharging. And it says it's recharging. So that part of the procedure is pretty quick and easy. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and take you over to my countertop and show you kind of what the vacuum's made of and what kind of wear and tear it's seen over the 3-4 uses that I've used it for. So I'll go ahead and move it over and we'll be right back with that. This is what the vacuum looks like after a few uses. On the top, it doesn't look too bad. It actually gets pretty dusty. I'm not sure if that's just because of the areas and environments that it's dusting within my house, or if that's what's causing the amount of dust buildup. If it's normal, if it's just me, but it gets a little bit dusty. That's something you can just wipe down with some Windex, some quick detailer if you're into cars and you happen to have that around. Pretty easy to clean there. So, like I'd mentioned, our dustbin comes right out the back. Not anything too crazy looking in there. The filter still looks clean. The dustbin's reasonably clean. This thing, like I said, I've vacuumed 3 or 4 times with it. I definitely recommend cleaning out the dustbin more often than that, probably every 1 or 2 uses. Again, in my case, I'm vacuuming over 3,000 square foot house. Take that for what it is, and if you have a house half the size, maybe you can get double the amount of runs out of it before you have to clean the bin out. But just monitor that, figure out what the best is for you, and then kind of go from there and make sure it's cleaned out, because I had it pretty jam-packed earlier and I'm guessing it wasn't vacuuming with optimal efficiency at that point. So taking a look in here, and this is my first look in here as well, looks like everything is pretty reasonable inside the vacuum. In fact, if I flip it this way, you can probably get a better view. It's upside down. So it looks like we have, pretty sure that's probably the air duct that's pulling air in and exhausting out the side ports. And then this is the brush. So your air would come in through here, obviously through the brush on the bottom, get sucked into here, get sucked into the dustbin over here, and pass up through the HEPA filter and out through this exhaust. So pretty simple and straightforward in terms of how it functions and everything. Everything looks good in there, no degradation of anything, just a little bit dirty, dusty, but that's to be expected. This is an appliance that gets dirty. On the bottom, wheel-wise, suspension-wise, everything seems to be okay. Seems to be running smooth. The brushes look to have no wear. I wouldn't expect any after only a couple uses. That's them compared to a new one. So a little bit less shiny, a little bit less kind of tightly woven, but no discernible wear there. The steering wheel, steering ball, again, no problem. It does look like it has a pretty darn good amount of hair built up. That may be contributing to it drifting one way versus another. Got some hair trapped in the brushes there. And then the big area where we have some cleaning that needs to be done for sure is inside the main brush. There's a ton of hair kind of gathered up in there. So I'm going to have to go ahead and clean that out. I think the best way to do that, you basically have two ways. You can either use a little brush and a hair slicer attachment, but I think if you push on here and here, yep, that hinges out and you're able to pull the brush out. And that was definitely a good move because there's a ton of hair wrapped around there. So I've got that came out, and I'm going to take this over to a trash can and really go to town on the brush. Definitely a good move to clean that out every few uses as well, it looks like. So probably every time you clean the dustbin out, you want to clean that brush off too. Same with any other vacuum. All vacuums get that all trapped up in there. So not anything that's abnormal. As far as any of the other functions go, haven't tested them out yet. The mop function was kind of a plus to me on this. It wasn't a selling point at all. It was just kind of a nice to have. My main use is for vacuuming. I live in a dusty environment. I keep my floors clean. I don't wear shoes in the house or anything like that. No pets or anything. So I don't need to mop normally. Anytime I spill something, I just normally take some Windex and spot clean it on the floor. No big deal. So the mopping function, I don't see myself using often, if at all. I will, obviously, over the course of time, replace things like brushes, replace things like the filter. I'm sure I'll need to replace some things around the unit itself. But overall, I think this is going to be a pretty low maintenance item outside of just the normal vacuum maintenance things. One thing I want to point out in terms of wear and tear is actually on the front. You can see we have quite a bit of dust built up and everything, but there's also some scraping starting from collisions with walls and things. It doesn't collide hard into anything, and you can see I wipe 99% of it away, but it is starting to get a little bit scratched up and everything. Again, it's an appliance, that's going to happen, but just something to be cognizant of. I'm not worried at all about it damaging any of my furniture or walls or anything like that, but you will see that happening. Don't be surprised if you see that happening on yours if you pick one of these up. So just something to be aware of. I'm going to go ahead and clean all of this stuff up, put it back together, and kind of show you what a freshly cleaned vacuum looks like, just so you can see kind of the before and after. And I think from there we'll wrap up and be good to go. Well, the vacuum is nice and clean and shiny now. There's just a few things I wanted to go over before we wrap up the video. One being batteries for the vacuum. They're underneath this cover. It unscrews, and I believe they're fairly standard lithium-ion rechargeable batteries under there. Just something to know. If the vacuum outlasts the batteries, that's where they're located. Another thing, this wheel right here in the cleaning process, I just took a small flat blade screwdriver, pried up, and it's really easy to pop out. So definitely recommend doing that anytime you service the rest of the vacuum, clean the rest of the vacuum. Pull that out, clean the hair out. I noticed there was some hair kind of getting around in the pivot mechanism here. So maybe that'll make it track a little bit more straight. Who knows? You can see the brushes are cleaned, wheels are cleaned. If I flip it over, front area is nice and clean, and the top, other than the fingerprints that I just got all over it, is nice and clean as well. One thing I noticed is the top seems to be glass of some sort. Tempered glass, I don't know what, but I do believe it is glass. And that means you can use any glass cleaners on here without having to worry about degrading the plastics, making them crack or fade over time, nothing like that. So should stay looking nice as well for quite a long time. Overall, I definitely really like this thing. I'm able to use it to take over the vast majority of my vacuuming duties. I used to vacuum at least once a week, generally speaking, whole house, carpets and tile and all of my little area rugs and everything. This thing can do basically all of that for me on a regular basis. For me specifically, this is not a replacement for normal vacuuming, but it's taking a lot of the load off of me. I'm still going to vacuum higher traffic areas once every few weeks, using a kind of my cordless vacuum probably, and then vacuuming bedrooms and rugs and things at least once every few months. I'll kind of play it by ear and see how that goes with one of my big plug-in vacuums. But this thing is really great for kind of day-to-day use, and I'm able to decide, one day that, hey, I want this thing to run for a couple hours. Click on vacuum, auto clean, and it'll just run around the house on its merry way and vacuum everything while I'm doing something else, like making a meal or working on the computer. So it allows me to be a little bit more productive, do things that I want to do. I definitely don't fully trust it yet to run autonomously. I don't click run and leave my house or anything. I'll click run and kind of pay a little bit of attention to it while it's running, make sure it doesn't get caught up on my carpets with the tassels and things on them, make sure it doesn't get stuck and freak out or anything like that, knock anything over. It does have enough power to push things around for sure, so definitely be cognizant of that. If it doesn't sense your thing, whatever it is, if it's something lightweight, it'll push it around for sure. But overall, I definitely, if I were to do it again, would buy another one of these. Time will tell how well this one works. I'll definitely keep you guys updated in the comments section below and in the video description as well, in terms of how this lasts, how this works over time. But definitely would buy this or something like this again. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching. Definitely, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to help any way I can. And I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.